Well, Wayne, it's amazing to meet you alive and looking amazing too. Could we start by asking you at what point you became aware that there was something happening that you had to tackle?
I suppose the first time I knew something was wrong was when I heard a woman scream. I didn't actually see who was screaming, or I couldn't exactly pinpoint exactly where it was happening. But I don't know how well you know London Bridge at all, but if you know the station, it's got a little bit of a bus station area, and it's got that big U-bend road where the buses and black taxis come in the right side and come out on the left. I was standing on the left side of the U-bend on the footpath, and me and my colleague were literally just going out for patrol, literally not long after 10 o'clock. The plan was to go across the bus station and down the metal staircase that takes you to the underground, just to have a look around and get back in time to watch the highlights for the football. I heard a lady scream that was coming from my left-hand side. I turned to the left and I looked, and I could see down Borough High Street, but I couldn't see who was actually screaming. It sounded like it was coming from the right, behind the bridge columns in the buildings. But what I did see was there's a little bar called Tito's on that left-hand side, and the bouncers, the people having a cigarette, the people queuing to go in, every single one of them was static, not moving, and all of them were staring in one direction. That made me realise something was up. I saw people running up and down the street in Borough High Street. I heard shouting, some kind of commotion, and then I heard what sounded like glass breaking. I think to me it sounded most like a pint glass. I started running. My initial thoughts were it'd been a pub fight that spilled out, putting the sound of a pint glass smashing, and the fact that it was the night of the Champions League final, so I knew most people would still been out, stayed out celebrating after watching the football. As I'm running down London Bridge Street, I'm running at an angle, so I'm sort of crossing over to the right hand side because I want to go to where I heard the scream from and where I hear the most noise. A gentleman starts running towards me from opposite London Bridge. Say he's about mid-20s, white chap, and he's running towards me from the left. I see him running towards me, so I stop and face him. As he gets to me, he points and he says, mate, that guy's just been stabbed. I look to where he's pointing, and I see in the distance, on the floor, there's somebody laying down, and there's 2 or 3 people standing around him. My colleague runs on ahead. That same gentleman runs with him, and I'm running behind them. I'm a little bit slower. I get to the persons on the floor. I see it's a guy who's got a beard. He's still alive. He's breathing because he's grimacing in pain. He's laying flat out. His left hand is by his head, and his right hand is sort of pressed against his lower right back. While he's holding his lower right back, I look, because he's wearing a light coloured t-shirt, I can see a small kind of collection of blood. Figured out obviously that's where he'd been stabbed, in the lower right back area. My colleague's on the radio, he's starting to call for an ambulance. At that moment, an off-duty MPS officer, he badges me. He says, mate, I'm an officer. I saw the stabbing. I saw him get stabbed. I said to him, all right, mate, stay there. I'm about to go on my radio to call for more units and get some CCTV, find out what's going on. Then another guy comes from a right-hand side. I'm not sure if it was the same guy that was there before. All I remember is somebody came to me and he goes, something like, officer, they've gone up that way, they've run that way, and he's pointing at London Bridge. I look to where he's pointing, but I can't see anything. So I'm about to get on my radio, get some units, when I hear this scream. It's a woman screaming. I turn to my right, and running towards me is a lady, early to mid-20s. She wasn't old, and she's running towards me, screaming, until she sort of starts to stumble, and that's when I see the first one sort of gets hold of her and starts attacking her. She falls to the floor, and he sort of takes hold of her head by standing over with both his hands.
Are you still thinking at that point that we're dealing with a pub brawl?
It was at that point, to be honest, it's in between a pub brawl or a gang attack. I didn't at that stage realise the scale of what was happening. The next clear memory I have is there's this quite well-built, stocky, white guy, and he's quite big. He's about 6'1" plus, broad, light coloured shirt. He's running towards me, and then he, for unknown apparent reason, he just falls flat forward. And it's when he falls flat that I see looks like the same attacker standing behind him, and that's when I see the knife in his hand. It was in his right hand. And then my brain starts to cotton on that he was stabbing the guy. He steps over him without any mercy, without thinking, hesitating, and he just carries on attacking him while he's on the floor, and he's pleading for his life. I remember clearly hearing him saying, "Please no, please no." I took my baton and I racked it. I took a deep breath and I charged in.
Racked it means extended?
Yeah, I fully extended my baton out. And I just charged the first attacker. At this point, I didn't realise there was more of them. I just saw the first one. I charged at him and I swang as hard as I could. I was planning to take his head off in one go, like just put him down straight away. He looks and he sees me coming at the last second, and he managed to get a hand up, or both his hands up. I'm already in full swing, so I still catch him. I didn't catch him as good because he managed to get his hands up, but I hurt him. I heard him yelp in pain. I hit him hard enough that he stumbles backwards at least a metre. I'm standing over the guy that he was attacking on the floor. I look at him for about half a second, just a moment stop, and then I'll go for him again. Now, I'm starting to overpower him, but rather than attacking sideways, I'm coming downwards now. I'm striking downwards on top of him. He's not completely on the floor, but he's in a crumpled kind of position. He's defending himself. He can't attack me. I've got the better of him. I'm starting to overpower him. Then while I'm fighting the first one, I get a massive whack to the right side of my head. It felt like a metal bar at first, only afterwards I realised it was a knife. But the second one, it hit me so hard on the side of the head, it knocked the lights out of my right eye. I went blind straight away. Even before I started bleeding, the vision just went like a light switch.
So this is the strike that got you?
Yeah, there's a few lacerations through the eye. I've still got stitches on the eye, as you can see. I remember taking the whack, it stunned me. Oh, what the hell was that? I gathered myself and opened this eye just in time to see a knife coming up. And it was more reactions and instincts. I remember blocking it. And then after I blocked it, then I managed to look up and see the second attacker. Me and the second one are now fighting. I'm swinging at him, he's swinging his knife at me. And the second one's shorter than the other two. Because while I'm fighting with him, I can see, my vision's able to see over his right shoulder. The third one's running down the bridge. The only thing I could tell that it was the third one, it's not that he was saying anything, it was just the way he was moving, just the way he was running, and I could see these guys with them. I don't remember exactly everything that happened that night. My memories still comes in patches. But the next thing I remember is I've got the second one, which is the shorter one, and the third one. He's bigger than the other two. He seems like a bit wider, a bit taller. He's in a jacket. And I'm literally, with one eye, my baton in my hand, I'm going fighting left to right between the second one and the third one. I'm fighting with them for a little spell, for a moment, and while I'm fighting with them, my left leg starts wobbling. I don't understand what's going on. My left leg's just wobbling. I'm thinking, what's wrong with my leg? What's wrong with my leg? I look down and I can see there's a knife moving up and down, and then I realise the first one had got back up and got back into the fight. And while I was fighting with these two, he'd come round and started sticking his knife into me. He was carving me up and down. Then I knew I was in serious trouble. I've got these two in front of me. I remember going down at his hand or his arm, and he pulls the knife out. So to be honest, I don't actually think I hit his arm. I think he moved it out because he saw me coming down. I think I miss him, and rather than just stepping away and backing off, he comes up with his knife in an arcing upward motion. I was wearing a short-sleeved uniform t-shirt, and I think he was trying to open up my forearm. He was trying to open up my veins on the arm. But where I had gone down and moved, he ended up slicing my fingers instead. And then at that point, all I remember is I'm just swinging. I'm swinging all over the place. I don't even know if I'm hitting them or not. I'm just swinging in their general direction. I only had one voice in my head, and that was, "Don't go down. Don't go down." That's all I had. And for me, that voice was the big man upstairs, guardian angel, whatever your belief is. Because I knew full well that what the voice was basically telling me, that if I went down, we wouldn't be here right now.
Did you think you were going to die?
At that point, no. I thought I was gonna later on. I was swinging away. I remember swinging away at them. And then at some stage, I get a bit of distance between me and the three of them. And the three of them are standing. They're now on the footpath on the opposite side of Borough High Street, and I'm standing in the middle of the road. And I'm staring at them, and the three of them are practically shoulder to shoulder in a little wolf pack, and they're staring at me. I've got my left eye, my baton in my right hand, bleeding. I'm staring at them, and they're staring at me. We stared at each other anywhere between 10 and 30 seconds. And I was basically, it was a weird kind of Mexican standoff cowboy movie moment where we're getting ready to draw again and we're getting ready for round 2. And I'm getting ready for them to rush me again. But they didn't. They didn't come for me the second time. I couldn't tell you why. After we stared at each other for a while, it was just me and them. I don't remember anybody else being there. Then the first one, I remember him, he runs to the left, and I think that's where he goes into Borough Market. And the next thing I remember is the other 2, they've gone now. But when they're standing together in a wolf pack, the short one, he's like saying, Allah Akbar, with his eyes bulging. And that's where I get to size them up and get a half decent look at them. I can't see properly because I'm only using one eye. And it's hard to tell depth perception with one eye. You lose that extra angle. But I did notice that the first one, he had this, what looked like black water, like what cyclists use, they reckon, they, you know, to fluids, liquids and water bottles, strapped around his waist. I could only see about 3, 4 as he's, because he had them under the jacket, but it looked like they were strapped in like duct tape. I think that was probably the moment when I saw the 3 of them and the short one was saying Allah Akbar, and then I saw these things strapped to the body. That's when I started to understand what I was dealing with.
Terrorism.
Yeah. But because it was so, I was there and fighting, and in the middle of it, there wasn't much I could do about it.
And you were anyway terribly badly injured by now.
Yeah.
You couldn't move really.
No. After they ran.
Other guys came to your rescue.
Yeah. I've heard other bits and stories from other people, but to be honest, I don't remember everything. There are other guys that I want to, like the off-duty officer. I know he got injured because he was in the same hospital I was, but I haven't had a chance to speak to him.
So you had a very bad injury in your thigh.
My left hip was opened about 5 inches across, about 3.5 to 4 inches deep. My right eyebrow and right side of my forehead was opened up.
And your finger, which finger?
My left finger was sliced into two halves. That side was hanging and that side was hanging open. I got other cuts around the back of the hands, other little lacerations around the head, on the scalp.
But by now you must have begun to think, I'm on the way out.
It wasn't until they'd gone and I made my way to the side of the footpath that they were standing, and I'm leaning against the wall. And then I feel what feels like warm water on the back of my hand. I start looking down, like, where's this warm water coming from? And then I realise it's blood, and I'm just gushing. I'm pouring all over my hand, my uniform. It's pouring out all over the floor, and then I start to realise I'm in trouble. I remember my colleague. He comes. I think he puts his hand on my arm, on my shoulder, and he says, "You're going to be all right, Wayne. You're going to be all right." And I hear him get on his radio and say, "Officer down, officer down." Some other officers start to show up. I tell my colleague, "Look, you gotta go get them, just go." And these other 2 officers manage to get me on the floor. They sit me down. I let go of my baton. They undo my zip, they take my high-vis jacket off, they take my body armor off, and then I end up laying flat on the floor with my head just propped up. And these 2 off-duty officers, I don't know what they're using, but they're holding my head together. Both of them got their hands, they're just trying to keep my head together. And then a 3rd officer comes who I know. He's not a part of my team, but he's worked with us a few times, and he's holding my left hand. And I'm listening to them and I'm following their instructions, like, keep your eyes open, keep talking. I'm doing everything they say for at least a good 3-4 minutes. But at the end of that 4th minute, what feels like a medallion or a big coin in the middle of your chest. And every time you breathe out, it gets heavier. And you breathe in, and you breathe out, it gets heavier and bigger again. And like what other people have described, it's that black cloud starts to close in on your vision, and I can see it closing in, and I know my time's up. I spit blood out my mouth, so I can, and I call the name of the officer that's holding my left hand. He turns his radio down and he leans in close to me so he can hear what I'm saying. And I'm giving him my last messages to the missus, to my parents, and to my family. He's telling me, "No, mate, you're all right. You're gonna do it yourself. You're gonna do it yourself. You're gonna be fine." And I just said, "Listen, just do it. Just do it." And then, just as the last little bit of light on my last breath, lights out, and that was it.
Do you realise now that in suffering what you suffered, you unquestionably saved an enormous number of lives on the bridge and down in the street? Because they were all concentrating on you. You allowed them basically to virtually kill you.
It's only after you've had time to process, and you know, initially I'm in and out of consciousness, surgeries going on, you know, multiple surgeries for multiple stab wounds. You know, some of the messages that I've got from the public, and I've seen some messages from people that were there thanking me and saying thank you, you know, you saved my life and stuff. It's there's no real words to describe, you know, the public response. Amazing, overwhelming, don't quite fit it. I wasn't trying to, if I'll be honest with you, I wasn't trying to fight terrorists. I wasn't trying to, you know, take people on. All I was trying to do was keep people alive. That's all I had in my head.
Had you ever used a baton before in anger? No. Had you ever extended it before?
Oh, in practice and in training and stuff. You know.
Not in anger?
But no, that is the first time I've ever actually had to use my baton to, in a life and death situation.
Yeah, you were too junior, only, 18 months call.
Yeah.
Too junior to have a taser.
Yeah, I'm still in my probation officially. I finished my 2 years in September.
But you had a pepper spray here.
Yeah, we call it captor. Captor spray, that stays on your right hand side on your strong hand. Your baton's on your left, so you reach around and you draw it. I think for ages I thought, why didn't I use it at the time? You know, and I've spoken to colleagues, chiefs and stuff like that. For the life of me, I can't think, why didn't I use that first?
The pepper spray?
Yeah, the captor spray. And in those situations, you don't really process and think, oh, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. You go to what your instincts tell you to do. And, you know, captor, pepper spray, it's not 100% proof. There are a number of individuals, there's a percentage of people that it has no effect on. So I decided to go with, my instincts told me to go with the baton. It was my body and my mind's first choice. They had knives in the hand, and I got my baton in my right hand, and just took the fight to them, really.
Will you make a full recovery?
God willing.
Because you've got a long way to go with the walking.
I've got a long way to go. The doctors and surgeons and nurses, King's Hospital, they've done a fantastic job.
Have you had all the ops you need?
Yes.
So this is just a question of therapy.
Yeah, now I've got to. They're trying to get me to a specialist place where they specialise in these kind of serious wounds, and hopefully the place that I'm going to next, they're going to get my feet back, give me my hand back, get me back to 100%. I know the surgeon, when he first operated on my hand, he said that my tendons were intact. So it's just a matter of letting the next stage of the healing process get going, basically.
Do you want to stay in the force?
I will say, I'll give you the answer that I've given others that have asked me that very same question. Being a police officer is what I'm good at. I am good at what I do, I know that.
That seems to be evident.
However, there are members of the family and the girlfriend that think, no, that's enough, you've done your time, that's more than enough. I will, however, have to answer that question at a later stage. I can't be a police officer without my left hand and without my left leg.
And when you look back at the incident, in the very, very clear description that you have of it, do you think, I shouldn't have done that, I should have done a runner?
As much as some family and friends have told me that, I am who I am, you are who you are, you can't. No amount of training or studying or books can prepare you for what you or I would do in that kind of situation. It was a horrible situation. And my reaction was one of an officer that saw people running towards him, saw people being seriously hurt and dying in front of him, and I had one aim, and that was not to fight, my one aim was just to keep people alive, and that's what I was trying to do, just keep people alive.
Wayne Marques, it's an honour to speak with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.